Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer. You know, the other day I asked my son, Beatles or Stones? And he just looked at me and said, can't we just have regular food for once? Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at Red Rising from Stomemaier Games. In Red Rising from Stomemaier Games, 1 to 6 players take on the roles of various great houses as they attempt to manipulate 14 different castes in an attempt to dominate the universe. Now, this game is based on a popular book series that I have not read, but let's not let that stop us. Let's take a look. Now, the game board is a simple play area which boasts 4 unique locations. It also boasts place for resources, as well as the Institute space, the fleet track, and various other goodies. Now, I've only played this game as a solitaire game, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you kind of the basic way the solitaire game plays, then tell you what I think. Once you've selected your house, you're going to go ahead and draw a total of 5 character cards from the character deck. Each of these characters are of different colors. Again, they respond to the different caste systems in society, but each of the cards is unique, and they represent different players that can do different things on their turn. Now, essentially, you're going to place a number of other character cards down in the locations. You're also, with the solitaire game, going to place down in those various locations an A, B, C, and D card, which indicates that not only is that location, but it also corresponds to that letter. You're also going to place another specific reward under the Luna location, because ordinarily the Luna location kind of moves the first player token, but here it's going to be a little bit different in the Automa game. Now, your specific house is going to receive certain rewards whenever you receive the Sovereign token. For instance, your card may say that you get to move on the fleet track, or you get to place your cubes in the Institute, or other fun and interesting things. Now, each of the character cards are going to have a number of special abilities. They're going to have a deploy ability, more on that later, but they're also going to have things that say, you know, if this card is in your hand with another card, or it must be without a certain other card, or depending on certain other conditions, that is how that card is going to be scored. So essentially, over the course of the game, you're trying to build up a hand of cards that is going to reflect your best possible score. They have at the top a core score, I can't remember what it's called, but the core rating, the core score, which is basically what that card is worth, but then with these different modifiers, additions, and sometimes subtractions, at the end of the game, it will tell you what that card is ultimately going to be worth. Now, on your turn, you've got a couple of actions. You can either lead or scout. Now, if you lead, you essentially place a card, one of the cards from your hand, down on any one of the 4 locations. Now, if you place it down on the 4 locations, you must do the deploy action if possible. You have to do whatever it says that happens to that card if it gets deployed. And this can be, you know, draw another card or do something nasty to somebody else, or it can just be all sorts of things, right? But you have to do the deploy action. Then you can go ahead and claim a card from any of the other spaces on the board, and if you do that, you can go ahead and claim whatever reward is on that space. For instance, I think it's Jupiter moves the fleet. You can move your fleet forward on the fleet track. You've got Mars, which lets you get the helium resource. You've got Luna, which lets you take the Sovereign token. And you've got the Institute, which lets you place your cubes in the Institute. So you can go ahead and take a card from any of those locations and then get that special reward. You actually roll a die, and that die corresponds to the different locations, and whatever comes up that's whatever reward you get for that turn. The second thing you can do instead is, if you don't want to lead, you can scout. Essentially, you can just take the top card off of the character deck, so it's a random draw, and then you place that card on any one of the other locations and gain that location reward. Now, with the automata, essentially you're going to draw 2 automata cards. The first card is going to say that you are going to place a card on one of the locations from the deck. So you place the card on top of the deck. Then it's going to tell you, the card is going to tell you which location or which letter you're going to take a card from. And unlike you, it can place down a card on one location and take it from that location. You have to place and take from different locations. And then if there's a specific symbol on that card, it will also tell you if they get the reward from that symbol or they don't get anything at all. It may also have a symbol that tells you need to banish the card from the top deck, meaning you need to take that card and put it out of the game. Now, theoretically, some of those cards can come back, but it's out, and some of those cards, even though they're banished, may be important for scoring purposes on some of your other cards. So you're going to draw 2 of those Automata cards and go ahead and do 2. And what that means is the Automata's deck is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. Unlike yours, which stays at 5, it can possibly get bigger, can possibly get smaller, but generally it's not going to get too much bigger. In fact, if you have over 7 cards, you do get penalized. But the Automata deck, it just keeps getting and getting cards. Now, I should point out, too, in the Automata game, you've got another card that says odd or even, and you're going to, depending on the cards that are placed out on the board at the beginning of the game, you're going to place, if the majority is odd, you're going to place the odd side showing. If the majority is even, you're placing the even side showing. And for these purposes, a 0 is considered an even number. Now, the end game is triggered when certain conditions are met. For instance, if ever one player has 2 of these conditions met, it triggers the end game. If they're at 7 on the fleet track, but they also have 7 helium, or they've got 7 at the Institute, that is going to immediately trigger the end game. The other player gets to go, so you've got an even number of turns for both players, and then you go ahead and proceed to scoring. Now, ordinarily, in a regular game, you would just look at your cards, you would add up the core values, and add or subtract whatever you had added to them on the bottom of the other cards. But you're also going to get some points for how many helium tokens you have, how many, where your fleet track is located, what you've got in the Institute. All these things are going to come into play to contribute to your score. That still is true in the solitaire game for you, but however, the Automata is going to score a little bit differently. You're going to go ahead and separate the cards into odds and evens. You are going to then eliminate back and forth down to a total of, I think, 20 cards. The Automata gets like a base of 70 points, and then depending on the odds and the evens, they score just a certain number. They don't score the printed number, they just score a certain number of those cards. So you go ahead, you add up all of their points, including, where they are on the fleet track, the Institute, the helium. You're going to add all that together for them. You're going to look at everything you've added together, and whoever has the highest number wins. Red Rising. So as I say, I've never read the IP, I'm not familiar with the books, so I can't speak to how thematic this game is. It doesn't strike me as that it would be terribly thematic, but I don't know. It could be. Also, too, again, I've only played this game solitaire. I played it a few times now solitaire. I have not played it with another living human being. I would like to at some point. I don't imagine the dynamics will be too different, but I mean, essentially, obviously, you're not playing against you're playing against a person and not just kind of these other cards. First of all, too, I want to mention I've got the collector's edition. The good people at Stomemaier Games sent me the collector's edition, and I've got some issues with the collector's edition. The colors of the components, the blocks, if you're not in the right light, they're very similar. Like blue and green look almost identical. There's a yellow and gold; they look almost identical. And if again a right light hits them, you can tell them apart. But if you're colorblind or you have vision problems, I don't know how you're going to be able to keep track here. So that's an issue. I've heard that the non-collector's edition, actually the components are a little more workable. They're not as nice in a lot of ways, but they're still workable. Having said that, generally I do like the components of this collector's edition. I think the helium tokens are nice, and you've got card trays that you can put your cards in. I wish it was a little longer, but it's kind of nice to just have a little tray there where you can take a look at your cards instantly. Also, one thing, too, about this game, I think the artwork is phenomenal. Beautiful artwork. Beautiful character design here, and cards all look great. Absolutely great. So, what do I think of the game from the solitaire experience, playing the game solitaire experience? Well, I'll tell you right now, I had fun with this game. I actually, frankly, had more fun playing this game than I thought I would as a solitaire. I suspect I would like it better playing against human beings. I don't think I'd want to play this game with like 5 or 6 people. I think that would be too much, because I'll tell you right now, as one person playing this game, and I am not someone who is incredibly prone to AP, but there was AP because you're reading all the cards you can take and you're saying, okay, what can this one do? What can this one do? How can this maximize my hand? You're trying to juggle all these kind of mental numbers and ideas in your head, which is kind of fun, but it takes a while. So I can only imagine if you're playing this game with people with AP and you are, at a 5-6 player count, this game is going to take forever. I would not recommend it. But maybe a smaller player count, even 2 would be good, 3, maybe 4. But I wouldn't play with this game with 5 or 6. That's my impressions, again, just from a solitaire game. I really enjoyed the simplicity of this game. Because really, on your turn, there's 2 things you can do. You can either play a card and grab a card and get a reward, or you can randomly draw a card and randomly get a reward. It's a simple game. But as you play it, there is something very almost unexpectedly engaging in that system, and trying to manipulate your cards in such a way that you're going to maximize the points you can get, but at the same time knowing, gosh, if I play this card, I can do this, but if I get rid of that card, it screws up this combination. And really that's what this game is about, is that hand management, is that trying to make your cards work for you the best you can, which is awesome. But it leads me to another point, and that is, it seemed like in the games I played, I was about maybe 60-70% through the game when I was done. I completed my hand. I had it all figured out. I had maximized my hand size, but there was still game going. And so you can't keep playing it. And then it gets a little tedious. And I don't know if this happens in the multiplayer game, but I assume it would. But in the single player game, you can kind of get to the point where you're ready for the game to end. You're not going to make your deck any better, not the way you want it, the way you've worked for it, but there's still game to go. So that can be a little tedious. The end game can be a little tedious at times. It's not, even that being said, it's not so long that it ruins the experience or it diminishes the fun you've had and indeed the anticipation of finding scoring. But it just be aware of that. You do get to that point. You do reach that point where it's like, okay, I got it. And so it is what it is. All told, as a solitaire game, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this game. And I'm looking forward to playing it with friends at some point. I think this is a fun game. I think it's an interesting game. It's a game that's, you got to be able to kind of do some mental arithmetic. But it's not too bad. Watch out for people with AP, though, because the game will take a while. Enjoyed it. Recommendation for the discriminating gamer for Red Rising is buy it. And depending on your lighting or your, if you have vision issues, you may want to go with the regular edition as opposed to the collector's edition. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We'd ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We'd also ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to please check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and fun things like that. Please subscribe to that channel as well. And I'd also ask you to please give a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek. That also helps us out as well. And a thumb on YouTube. Hey, why not? Ladies and gentlemen, I recently started translating Beatles songs into Hawaiian, and it was going great until I got to Hello Goodbye. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Yeah, it's natural.